now, but you can exchange or deposit your currency in banks until the 30th of September. Shocking twist to the Aryan Khan drug saga. Exclusive SRK Wankhede chats accessed by India today. SRK begged for his son's release but refused to bend to any blackmail. Karnataka's new Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister Siddaramaiah and DK Shivkumar swearing in tomorrow. The two leaders meet the High Command in Delhi to discuss cabinet formation. Prime Minister Modi receives a grand welcome in Hiroshima, Japan as he lands for the G7 summit. Crucial Quad meeting to take place tomorrow. And a Supreme Court appointed panel report on the Adani case is out. Report says no artificial trading of stocks found so far. Says SEBI probe on foreign entities has drawn a blank. No regulatory failure found so far. The probe will continue.
Congress conquers Karnataka. BJP loses gateway to South India. Will Karnataka triumph galvanize opposition? Is Modi's invincibility in doubt? 2024 done deal or open contest? Mission 2024 Roundtable.
The verdict of Karnataka has dominated the headlines over the past week, but has it changed the battle lines and the fault lines of Indian politics ahead of the 2024 general elections? The Congress morale has undoubtedly been lifted. The opposition seems more spirited. But is a Modi-led BJP still the favourite to win a general election in 2024? Or is the political map of India slowly changing? What are the lessons from Karnataka for the big national picture? Hello and welcome to this special roundtable where I'm joined by some very eminent observers of Indian politics. Joining me on the show in the studio, Ashok Malik, partner at the Asia Group. I'm joined by Tavleen Singh, senior journalist and columnist, Swapan Das Gupta, political commentator, former MP Rajya Sabha and a member of the BJP. I'll be joined in a moment by Pawan Kumar Verma, former MP with the Janata Dal United and TMC and author, and by Yogendra Yadav, co-founder Swaraj India, is also with us. Appreciate all of you joining us. Over the next hour, I'll put some big questions to our panelists and seek answers. Questions that have emerged from that Karnataka verdict in particular. The first big question: has Prime Minister Narendra Modi's invincibility been dented by the Karnataka verdict? And before I come to the panelists, I just want to play this interesting video we prepared to show how India's political map has changed from 2014 to 23. Take a look. Now, if you look at it, this is how India's power map was in 2017, where clearly the BJP was dominant over larger parts. But as we went into 2018, the Congress won 3 state elections, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and suddenly the opposition occupied more land mass. By 2019, the BJP began to recover. Then they won UP again, and by May 2021, you could see that the map of India was being defined very differently. August 2022 saw more BJP victories that year, but by 2023, actually the opposition now occupies more land mass and population, especially peninsular India and the eastern corner of the country. Given what we've seen, Swapan Das Gupta, that big question: is Prime Minister Modi invincible, or is the BJP increasingly shaky, especially in the states of the country?
The term invincibility is a misnomer. In electoral politics, no one is really invincible. But there is no doubt that Narendra Modi is the dominant figure in Indian politics today. He was the dominant figure before the votes in Karnataka were counted. And he remains exactly in the same way. This was a state election, and naturally, in a state election where the BJP has always been inclined to put forward its best foot, best card, which is Narendra Modi. And Narendra Modi obviously occupies a disproportionate share of the campaign space. But at the end of the day, it is a state election. And I think the outcome was more a reflection of the quality, or rather the indifferent quality, of the governance which was there in Karnataka, rather than anything to do. But what Karnataka does tell you is that governance will play a very, very important part in shaping the minds of the voters. And in this respect, I think Mr. Modi's record over the past 10 years, remember, he's going to be judged not for 5 years, but a collective 10 years. And in that sense, I think Mr. Modi stands really at an advantage. And of course, there are other issues which are there, like, it's going to be a presidential race. It's a bit of beauty contest and all those sort of things. Voter turnout, mobilization, opposition unity, etc., etc. Those factors will, of course, come in.
No, I'll come to those.
Overall, I would say that at present, Mr. Modi is still the dominant figure in Indian politics.
Okay, dominant figure in Indian politics. Do you agree with that, Tavleen Singh? Prime Minister Modi addressed 19 rallies, 6 road shows in that last week. There was this blitzkrieg of campaigning. He was the focus. The party, the BJP lost. Do you see it like Swapan Dasgupta purely as a state election? Do you believe Mr. Modi is still the dominant figure?
Yeah, well, I sort of semi-agree with Chopin in the sense that, one Karnataka does not a summer make, okay? And it was a state election, but it was a very important state election in which Mr. Modi chose to become like a kind of regional satrap almost, he was campaigning so relentlessly that you couldn't take your eyes off him as the main issue almost in Karnataka. So, in that sense, he has done himself or his image some harm by actually doing that kind of campaigning in Karnataka. Now, when Chopin talks about governance, etc., it's true that in Karnataka the government was terrible and they should have taken some steps before that. But also, I think that Mr. Modi needs to start thinking a little bit more. Changing the narrative. He's been stuck in a groove almost. So, his speeches now in Karnataka were similar to the ones he made in Himachal. And, I think that he's become, to the voter, like a movie that he's seen before. Right. So I think that, we don't want to talk about invincibility and all that sort of thing. But certainly he's more vulnerable after Karnataka than he's ever been in the past, since 2014.
I'll come to those narratives too later in the show. But Professor Yadav, you've got Swapan Dasgupta very clear that brand Modi has not been hit. Tavleen Singh suggesting in a way that he needs reinvention. Your view, do you believe that his invincibility has been dented given the fact that Karnataka has consistently voted anti-incumbency every 5 years and differently in Vidhan Sabha and Lok Sabha?
Rajdeep, I agree with both the colleagues that invincibility is not what we are discussing. In any case, this is not the first time that we saw it. We saw that in Delhi, we saw that in West Bengal, we saw that in many other elections, that Mr. Modi's arriving at the scene does not automatically alter the elections. Of course, no one would deny Mr. Modi is the Prime Minister. He is currently the highest in the popularity rating. So clearly, he is a figure to reckon with. What is specific about Karnataka is that he invested all his prestige in this election, and towards the end, only for the last 1 week, it almost became Rahul versus Modi, in a way that it did not become in Bengal, in a way that it was not the case in Delhi. It did become Rahul versus Modi, thanks to Mr. Modi's publicity team, thanks to the mainstream media. This was Mr. Modi's election, and apparently Mr. Modi was saying that, तुम थोड़ा सा काम कर लो, बाकी तो मैं कर ही दूंगा. So what it has demonstrated, more than what we had known that in state elections Mr. Modi can be defeated, BJP can be defeated. What we have learned is that even if it becomes Rahul versus Modi, Mr. Modi's victory cannot be taken for granted. That's all I'm saying. I'm not reading more into it. I don't think we should read that Karnataka demonstrates that in Rahul versus Modi, Rahul will trump always. No, we can't draw those kind of conclusions. But remember, a small Congress worker sitting somewhere in Uttar Pradesh or in Rajasthan or possibly in Tamil Nadu must have been watching. Acha, this is Bharat Jodo Yatra. Rahul has acquired a new persona. He's there in the election. He's investing his energies, and so is Mr. Modi. And can Rahul Gandhi win elections? I'm not saying that Rahul alone has won elections. I'm not saying that this is the only magic that has worked. But we have seen a tiny little glimpse of what can happen in 2024. And that gives hopes to the opposition, not just to Congress, not just to Rahul Gandhi's team. This gives hopes to everyone who believes, who wants to reclaim this republic. And yes, it does show that Mr. Modi alone may not be able to swing even the parliamentary election.
But there will be those who will say, far from it being Rahul versus Modi, Pawan Verma, it was actually local leadership of the Congress versus the local leadership of the BJP. Yes, you had Mr. Modi campaigning, Rahul Gandhi campaigning, but these state elections and across the country are becoming more and more hyper-localized. And therefore, whenever we extrapolate based on state elections to a possible general election, we make huge mistakes. We saw it in 2018. The Congress won Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, wiped out 6 months later. What is to say that 2024 won't be any different?
No, I agree with you, Rajdeep. I think we have to understand that the voter differentiates between his choice in an assembly election and her choice in a parliamentary election. And that has been demonstrated time and again. I slightly disagree with my friend Yogendra that it became finally a Narendra Modi versus Rahul. Narendra Modi put a great deal of his persona into the elections, as he always does in every assembly election. But I think in this case of Karnataka, there were two factors that were against Modi, quite apart from Mr. Rahul Gandhi. One was the manifestly bad governance record of the BJP government for 5 years. And the second was that there were important, rooted local leaders and certain caste equations within Karnataka which were managed well by the Congress party. So I don't think Karnataka shows that it's become Narendra Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. The third thing I want to say, if you extrapolate Karnataka to what may happen in 2024, you see, the BJP has its strengths: leader, narrative, you may not agree with it, organized cadre, verifiable welfareism. But today, some of this is becoming repetitive, predictable, and I think a strategy of diminishing returns. The constant card of religious polarization. I think the voter is seeing through it. If governance records are not good, he's saying this is an attempt openly and blatantly to deflect attention from the real issues. Hyper-nationalism. How long can you continue to play it in a situation where there are legitimate discontents on the ground, in a K-shaped recovery where there is unemployment, there is price rise, there is the sense of rich becoming richer and the poorer poorer. So I think there are limitations to that, hyper-nationalism and religious polarization. As far as welfareism is concerned, I give credit to the DBT transfer policy, but I think that needs an audit. In Karnataka, for instance, women voters did not vote for the BJP precisely because of welfare scheme of the BJP, which was much touted. The Ujjavala scheme was not working because of the cost of the price of cylinders. So I think we need an audit on that, and I think 2024 is entirely a question not of the BJP's strength, but about the continued weakness of the opposition if it does not unite itself on an organic basis.
Okay,
And the
I'll
key
come to
here,
opposition unity.
Rajdeep, last line,
Yes.
lies with the Congress. Last line lies with the Congress party.
Okay, we will come to opposition unity as well, but early comments suggest that brand Modi needs reinvention. Yes, this was a state election. Yes, we cannot overread a state election, but religious polarization, Jai Bajrang Bali, somehow or the other trying to create divides on the ground. The Home Minister, no less, suggesting there could be riots if the Congress comes to power. Does it need a greater focus on just pure and simple governance? The BJP says this is a large constituency of Labhartis, but the Labhartis seem to prefer the Congress's 5 guarantees to the BJP's promised benefits.
Rajdeep, I'll give you 2 challenges for the BJP in the election of 2024 and 3 advantages. The 2 challenges, after 10 years, obviously a third election is always going to be tough because there is a fatigue. No hostility perhaps to Mr. Modi, but fatigue. And voters who were first-time voters this time were 10 years old in 2014. So they will need to be, be enthused in a sense. So a certain reinvention is called for irrespective of who's in contention for the third term. The second disadvantage is, I would say, what the BJP has to be to guard against. Every party going into election is both combative and inspirational. It has to have that right balance. Today, the BJP, not Mr. Modi individually, who's still much admired, but the BJP's identity is seen as perhaps over-combative and not sufficiently inspirational. It has to guard against that. Okay?
With relatively weak chief ministers as well.
In some states, and where they have weak chief ministers or weak leaders, they lose.
Because the double engine concept seems to have been dented, derailed in Karnataka.
I'll give you 3 advantages of Mr. Modi. We all talk about his appeal. What are the ingredients of his appeal? Number one, the last 5 years or 7 years has seen a massive infrastructure boom. From airports to rural water, to housing for the poor, to railway stations. Some part of this infrastructure, some part of some infrastructure upgrade has touched everybody's life.
Okay,
I'm not saying everybody has benefited from everything, but something has touched everybody. Second, there has been a K-shaped growth after COVID. COVID was a cataclysmic event. Those at the upper end have benefited from the opportunities post-COVID. Those at the bottom half are still struggling. However, targeted welfareism as well as very efficient inflation control. Inflation last month was 4.79%, which is given what's happening in the world, which is very important to note. And the third factor is, in a time of global upheaval in Pakistan, upheaval in Syria, on the China border, in a time of global upheaval, and intuitively voters recognize there is global upheaval. Voters in Delhi recognize it, voters in Darbhanga recognize it. They recognize it differently, but they recognize it. In a time of global upheaval, people will not want to destabilize or remove a stable, steady, credible leader.
Okay, interesting the points you're making, because Swapan Dasgupta, the point I mentioned just now to Ashok Malik, this double-engine Sarkara, this belief that the Prime Minister can lift even governments that are non-performing, that even there are question marks over the Labharti, whether targeted welfareism is working as effectively across India, or is it working in some areas and not in others? Should there be greater introspection on the strategy that the BJP has adopted, that the reinvention will be needed, particularly because you're now suffering from 10 years of possible anti-incumbency at some level?
See, the double engine concept, it is basically that the center and the states must act in harmony and they must synchronize their energies. That's the real idea behind it. It has worked in Orissa also to a very large extent, despite the fact that Navin Patnaik is a BJP government. Now, what I think is very important to recognize is that one of the reasons why, for instance, the double engine concept did not work in, say, Himachal Pradesh, it did not work in West Bengal, and it did not work in Karnataka this time, was because of one fact. What is common about it? What is common about it is that there was no inspirational local leadership as far as the BJP is concerned. Where there was, like in Assam, it worked. And Assam has a far more difficult electoral terrain for the BJP than in other states. Now, I think what really needs a little bit of re-examination on the part of the BJP is that you must get more rooted people as chief ministers You must get more Himanta Biswa Sharmas. You must get more yogis. They might be temperamentally different, but they are both very rooted in their politics of the region. And this idea that you must get the nearest a person who's otherwise lackluster, etc. Now, I think in hindsight, everyone will recognize that the decision to remove Yadurappa, because he had turned 75, etc., was not a very wise decision, because his replacements were not as inspirational or as astute politically as him. So you went into battle with an idea, but that idea couldn't get translated into the ground, partly because there was a bad record of governance. There was no leadership. And remember, every state election is also in some ways a presidential election. The Congress, on the other hand, had familiar faces, both D.K. Shivkumar as well as Siddaramaiah. Unknown faces. They've been there for a very long time.
So you're accepting the fact that you need stronger, inspirational local leaders for the double engine to work.
BJP's own arrangement of BJP's own internal federalism needs to be re-examined in some way.
Okay, but let's turn therefore from there. We've looked at the Modi factor and the need for reinvention, but what about the opposition? Is the opposition unity index rising or falling? Take a look at this graphic that we've done to show where the opposition stands, because remember, there are those who believe that the opposition's only hope to take on the Modi government is to have at least 400 of the 543 seats, one-on-one fights in 2024. And as we look at that opposition unity meter, we'll keep playing it, but Tableen Singh, what is your sense? Does the opposition need to unite to defeat the BJP, Modi-led BJP, to have any chance in 2024? Can they fight this election separately as they appear to be at the moment? And does the Congress need to be at the center of it all?
Look, when we're talking about this, and in the context of Karnataka, I have to say that people remember them all standing on that stage and holding hands, and all that stuff that went on then.
5 years ago.
I don't think that is what is going to appeal to people. Right. But if in Karnataka, because actually on the governance, development, infrastructure front, no leader in the Congress party can compare with Modi. He has transformed India physically, and people can see that, as Ashok was saying. But, in Karnataka, if they can really govern Karnataka well, which is, a big ask considering what's been going on in the past few years, then I think that the voter might think that the Congress party is back, because there's no opposition unity without the Congress party being the fulcrum, the central pillar. The rest of them are not in a position to compete nationally.
So are you talking of one-on-one fights?
It all depends on the Congress party.
No, but are you saying there should be 400 one-on-one fights? Or are you saying they need a narrative in the first instance? They need to have a track record of governance before they can claim we are united?
Yes. They, they can unite and fight one-to-one and all that. I don't think that in a Lok Sabha election, that is as important as the fact that, Narendra Modi, even if it's 10 years, has been seen as a powerful prime minister who has given, who has delivered on governance. There are other flaws, but the fact is that people have seen, even his opponents can see, that he has delivered. So can the Congress party, and the Congress party did not deliver for most of these 75 years, or the 50 that they were in power, they ran a pretty shabby kind of governance. So can they show us in Karnataka, for instance, that they can really govern?
Okay.
I think that governance is going to be very, very important in the Lok Sabha election.
Yogendra Yadav, is it therefore about the arithmetic of the opposition trying to come together, or is it really about providing, as is being suggested by Tableen Singh, there a better narrative of governance? This is all about show me a governance model, whether it's a welfareist governance model, whether it's pro-poor, the 5 guarantees of the Congress in Karnataka, show me that it works. And then you have a better chance. Simply aligning with each other will be a khichdi that possibly the voter will reject.
Rajdeep, I've always held that the idea of a grand national opposition unity, Mahagathbandhan of all the opposition parties, is neither necessary nor sufficient, and in fact perhaps not even desirable. Somehow it tends to overplay, and intuitively all of us feel, of course, all the opposition should come together. But if you actually look at the electoral geography of India, you either have states where opposition unity of the kind needed has already been achieved. Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Bihar also in some ways, or states where it's not needed, states like Bengal and many other states where it's not needed, states where it's not possible. In Uttar Pradesh happens to be one of those cases. And there are so many states where there is no other opposition party to align with. Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, who would you have opposition unity with? So to my mind, the real issue is not opposition unity. That may happen, some kind of alignment of opposition in terms of their narrative may be useful, some political voice unity may be useful, but a grand opposition alliance, a pre-election opposition alliance is not needed. In fact, Karnataka is a very good example. Karnataka, after all, do remember, Congress has won without a unity with a principal third force, namely the Janata Dal Secular. And what has happened there? People decided that, all right, Janata Dal Secular was spoiling votes. So in many places where Janata Dal was the third spoiler, they just discarded Janata Dal Secular completely. So what is important is for opposition to project an image. Yes, Tablin is absolutely right. Image of a political force that can govern, a political force that offers some unity, possibility of working together. Unity is different from a pre-electoral coalition. Electoral coalitions will be formed after elections. To my mind, the more we emphasize on the business of opposition unity, the more it will harm the opposition. We should focus on the larger issue of of people uniting. If there's anything unity is needed, it's unity of the people, as happened in Karnataka, or unity of civil society and movements organization with the principal opponent of the BJP. That is far more important, and that's something again that we saw in Karnataka.
I'll come to also issues around which this can coalesce, but Pawan Verma, you've got your former leader Mamta Banerjee, Nitish Kumar, all of them arguing for opposition unity. Nitish even more aggressively. Mamta Banerjee saying, look, virtually saying, leave Bengal to me, you fight in states where you're strong. Is that the way the opposition should be challenging the Modi-led BJP in 2024? Or first offering a more concrete narrative to challenge what Mr. Modi has done, challenge Mr. Modi's track record of governance instead?
I think in their own ways, opposition leaders are doing that. But we have to ask the question, what alternative do you give to a united party with a defined leader and a narrative and an organized cadre? See, Rajdeep, this is a very fundamental question. Today's India is not the India of 1979, 77 or 1989, where a khichdi of parties will be preferred, in my view, as against a stable government at the center. It's very clear. So the opposition needs also a fulcrum. The NDA had the BJP. The opposition, in my view, needs the Congress as the fulcrum. Now here lies the actual catch-22. Will the Congress, if it gets stronger and can play this role, be willing to make adjustments or concede space in different states to parties which are stronger or more likely to win? Or will it then, in pursuit of its own goals, divide the opposition? And this is very clearly seen before us. I mean, the Congress is fighting in Telangana. I need hardly repeat. KCR is leading the opposition. Congress is fighting KCR. Beneficiary, BJP. In West Bengal, the CPIM and the Congress fighting Mamta Banerjee. She won, but the beneficiary BJP. In Kerala, you have CPIM and Congress fighting against each other, and you don't know who ultimately will be the beneficiary in due course. Many other states, I can give you the example. So can the Congress, in playing the role of this fulcrum as the party with the only national footprint, allow its ambitions as a tactical matter at this stage to dovetail with that of the other leaders of what is a coalition like the UPA?
No, I take your point. I take your point.
Opposition.
No, I take your point. But you see, Ashok Malik, the interesting aspect is many believe that the BJP finds the Congress, Karnataka was an exception, finds the Congress its perfect enemy. When Rahul Gandhi is pitted against Mr. Modi, we saw it in 2014-19, Kamdar versus Namdar was the narrative that they played. In 2019, out of the 185 seats of a direct contest between BJP and Congress, the Congress won less than 10 and the margin was huge. Do you believe the BJP would actually prefer a contest where the Congress is the fulcrum? Do they find it more difficult to fight the regional parties even in a general election?
So 2 points here. Number one, to go back to something Yogendra Yadav said, and I think he was astute, you will probably not have one-to-one contest in 400 or 500 seats, but you will have a greater index of opposition unity this time than 2019. In some cases, a bottom-up index of opposition unity, because people will choose the strongest anti-Modi vote if they don't, party if they don't like Modi.
Like they eliminated the JDS virtually in Karnataka.
Or eliminated the Congress in Bengal 2 years ago, right? And if you support Mr. Modi, you will back him completely. Okay, that's one. But there is one other element in a national election. There is a thin sliver of a national vote. It is not a huge vote in percentage terms, but it's a thin sliver. It's a pan-India vote, and this vote can only go to a national party, Congress or BJP. And it can make a difference between an indifferent performance for a national party or a very good performance. We saw this in 2009 for the Congress, 2014, 2019 more for the BJP. Here, I think it's right, as of today, a no contest between Mr. Modi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi.
Still, despite Bharat Jodo Yatra, you don't think that has changed? In a national election, when it comes to leadership, you still think that Mr. Modi is substantially ahead.
Yes.
Tavleen Singh, you agree with that?
Because, it's not just Rahul Gandhi, it's the family. The Congress party has not moved an inch towards understanding what happened in 2014 and 2019. Now, I'm no longer a Modi bhakt or anything like that, but if I have to choose between Modi and Rahul Gandhi, there's no contest as far as I'm concerned, because to have Sonia Gandhi back as Mother India and, with her children, and, we can't go backwards. So the Congress party...
But they took a back seat in Karnataka. Sonia Gandhi did just one rally.
Which is why they won in Karnataka. Which is why they won.
Okay, it's interesting because in the areas through which the Bharat Jodo Yatra actually went, the Congress did reasonably well, in fact very well. The areas where Prime Minister Amit Shah campaigned, the BJP didn't do well. So I just wonder whether something has changed. Yogendra Yadav, do you believe that Rahul Gandhi is in a better position in 2024 and the Congress than compared to 2019 to challenge Mr. Modi?
Isn't that very obvious, Rajdeep?
No, you're saying it's obvious, the other guests don't seem to believe so.
It cannot be anybody's case that... it cannot be anybody's case that Rahul Gandhi or the Congress national leadership alone won Karnataka. Of course, Karnataka was won because BJP had a terrible government. Of course, Congress had very strong local faces, and that was decisive. But the national leadership, I thought, did three things which were critical in Karnataka. One was the Bharat Jodo Yatra. As you pointed out, there is clear empirical evidence. The Yatra passed through 20 or 21 constituencies. Earlier, the BJP held 12 of these constituencies. Congress held only 5 of these out of these 2021. And now Congress holds 16 of these. I have seen it in terms of vote swings because I had some technical interest in it. It is absolutely clear that the Yatra influenced those constituencies. But more than those constituencies, the Yatra changed the overall mood. Second, Congress leadership ensured through Rajdeep Sardesai and other intermediaries that the disputes at the local level did not cross the boundaries as they did in many other states.
3.
And number 3, unlike many other states here, Rahul and Priyanka were very much on the ground. So these 3 things played a role. How can anyone dispute that?
Okay, it's very interesting. They didn't play a role in Gujarat, remember, and many believe that that's because the Congress had given up Gujarat. And therefore the Gandhis were not exposed in that election. That could be an argument, but I take some of the points you make, also empowering state leaders. But I want to turn to the issues. Leading up to 2024, there's talk that the next election, could it be a coalition of castes, social engineering versus Hindutva? And I want to link it also to another issue which resonated in Karnataka. Will the politics of freebies decide 2024? These are 2 questions I want to link, because Swapan Dasgupta, there's much talk now that the Congress is going to push for a caste census, or so is the opposition. They're talking of reservations based on caste. You've got 3 of the 4 Congress leaders who are OBCs. The Congress wants to create a new kind of social coalition. In Karnataka, it worked. Dalits, Muslims, backwards, and Adivasis voted for it, versus the Hindutva nationalism that Mr. Modi demonstrated in Pulwama and the BJP has always had with the Ram Mandir coming up in January. Do you see that as a battle line at all? Social engineering, Congress style, versus BJP's Hindutva social engineering?
The Congress and many of the opposition parties are likely to, try this thing about, trying to fragment the electorate and make them possible, which in a national election is not going to make them thoroughly popular. It is my assessment. Like Ashok Malik, I believe that in the national elections there is an incremental surge in the performance of national parties, both the Congress and the BJP. The BJP does particularly well. There was a exit poll which was taken on the day of in Karnataka, which suggested that there would be a 6% rise in the BJP's
vote share.
Performance. So 6 or 8, I'm not quite sure. But it would give the BJP a comfortable majority in the 24 or so Lok Sabha seats in Karnataka.
Yes.
Now, the issue of Hindutva, which you play. Now, what is the role of Hindutva? This I think, needs a certain degree of elaboration. We saw a shrill sort of Hinduized drum beating, which took place particularly in the final week of the campaign. And this has been a pattern in all states. What is the reason for it? The reason for it is that is always used to motivate and bring out the already sympathetic BJP voters. It is to bring out the committed.
But it doesn't get you incremental voters. But it doesn't get you incremental votors, and in fact, it consolidates the anti-BJP voters as well.
Will you listen, Rajdeep?
Yes, go ahead.
It gets you incremental voters when the other factors are working.
Right.
It doesn't get you incremental voters if those other factors are not working.
So it's Hindutva plus.
Here the governance issue was a liability as far as the BJP was concerned.
Right.
But at the same time, it was that Hindutva which helped them to retain their vote share at 36%. But they couldn't get from 36 to 38 or 40 because of the absence of other factors. So Hindutva plays a certain instrumentalist role as far as all this is concerned. We must take into account, realize what its importance in electoral politics is. What its importance in the larger ideological framework is another matter altogether. We are not discussing that. We are just discussing electoral politics. And in electoral politics, it has that limited role.
Okay,
but a very crucial one.
But Pawan Verma, could it be loosely put Mandal versus Mandir once again? We saw it play out in the late 80s, 90s. It created more fractured mandates nationally. This attempt being made to reorient social engineering by the opposition, the BJP very clear, and Swapan Dasgupta mentions it, Hindutva plus. Hindutva plus, in a way, Moditva, if I may use it, Hindutva plus governance and strong leadership. Is that the battle line?
Actually, the truth, Rajdeep, is that the BJP is using Hindutva plus Mandal. This is what the opposition must understand. The BJP realized early on, because there's a think tank called the RSS, which thinks long term, whether you agree with its philosophies or not. they realize that their essential vote base is very narrow. It's the forward caste. And in a scenario of the other castes uniting on the basis of what you call social engineering, agada pichada, the BJP is at a disadvantage. So the BJP has used in the last 9 years to co-opt a large segment of the OBCs, and you could have seen it even in such puerile things as releasing a cabinet list where OBC ministers are specifically mentioned. So that attempt has been made by the BJP. Now in the case of the opposition, social engineering by itself is not going to work unless they can offer an alternative vision for the country.
Let me
I want to
stop
say
you.
to you that people can.
Let me just stop you, because this alternative vision is coming again and again, and I just want to get specifics on that from Professor Yadav just for a minute, because you've spoken a lot about social engineering in the past. Professor Yadav, you're a great endorser of a caste census. Is this a challenge, or do you believe it is back to identity politics, or are we now in 2023-24 looking at governance? And I link that to my question which I asked, the politics of freebies. There are those who have hurt post-COVID. Maybe they were the ones who, in Karnataka, for example, didn't want a gas cylinder at 1200, was unacceptable to them. The Congress was more attractive. Is it about welfareism, governance, or is it back to identity politics? Or a bit of both?
Rajdeep, this whole thing of freebies and identity politics gets spoken only after the BJP loses election. When BJP uses caste politics to the hilt, as Pawan Verma ji has quite rightly pointed out, no one talks about identity politics. When BJP offers loan waivers and all kinds of things, everyone forgets that there is a sweet called Revdi. All this we remember only after BJP loses. But let me get more serious, specifically on the real issue. To my mind, this Karnataka victory was not a victory only of a class coalition or a mandal thing, as I've repeatedly pointed out, and as every exit poll, including India Today exit poll, has pointed out. It's a victory of the base of the pyramid in four senses. Rural, urban, rural people voted massively for Congress, more than BJP, more than last time. Women voted more for Congress. In the caste terms, it was Ahinda, as you've rightly pointed out. And class, let us not forget rich, poor, which is a very strong equation. So this was a vote of the base of the politics, base of the social pyramid. And for me, the lesson for the opposition is very simple. Keep your focus on the base of the pyramid. Make your message aligned with your own base, as Congress managed to do in Karnataka, and show tenacity. What about governance? Yes, governance is linked to this. Governance is looked at through this prism. The poor looks at governance in a way which is very different from the way in which, say, Ashok Malik would look at it. Infrastructure, larger questions of international stability and so on. Poor doesn't look at it. Governance is important to the poor.
We've got limited time. Let him respond to that.
Looked at by the poor from their own angle.
Okay, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes, but very quickly, is that you've got the middle class, which has solidly voted for the BJP in the past in recent elections, general elections, particularly in urban India, which rewards infrastructure projects, which seems to like the idea of a strong, stable leadership. Professor Yadav is calling it a rich versus poor battle. Maybe a minimum income scheme is being talked about by the opposition.
To be fair, Yogendra has not been honest with what I said. I said that infrastructure has happened at all levels, from water in the rural households to houses for the poor to airports. So some infrastructure has touched everybody's life in different ways. I'm not making it a middle class versus not middle class. That is not what I'm saying. I quite understand that. I would like to point to one thing. Every election is multifactorial. There are many factors. Caste is there. Of course it's there. So is governance. So is leadership. So is corruption or lack of corruption. So is welfareism. So is economic hope or economic conditions. All of these matter. The relative weights change with election to election. I grant that. But while caste is important, we have empirical evidence that individual caste groups also think differently in local elections and national elections. The Vokaligas in Karnataka in 2019 thought differently in the national election and differently in the state election this time as well. The Jats in Haryana think differently. The Yadavs in UP think differently. I'm not suggesting no Yadav votes for the.
So you're saying more than a
BJP.
rich-poor divide, it's actually a divide of who I see national issues very differently to my local issues, and
Absolutely.
therefore vote very differently. The theory of the split vote.
It's very simple. If I am a person living in a village, for my local village, my local state, I look for a local leader. For my daughter's job in Gurgaon, even as a construction worker, I have a different imperative.
Okay, so given that, with 5 minutes to go, let me ask the final question. Is 2024 then Modi versus who, and is it therefore a done deal or an open contest? Each of my panelists, I'll give you 1 minute to tell me that. Is it a done deal or an open contest, and what is that one X factor that you believe will be key? In 2019, many believe it was the Pulwama bump that took the BJP beyond 300. Tavleen Singh, you start off first. What do you believe? Do you believe it's a done deal or an open contest? What's that one issue that can make a difference between May 23 and May 24?
I think it's an open contest, and I think that the biggest flaw in Modi's strategy is going to be the Muslims. Because if you notice that in Karnataka and wherever I've gone, the Muslims are very alienated. So if the opposition party can come up with a strategy that actually, gives the Muslims a sense of, the same security that they had before Modi, then the opposition.
But
really
Muslims were alienated in 2014 and 19 as well, ma'am. So what's changed? And will it not consolidate the Hindus?
Not as seriously as they are now.
Okay, you believe that they are far more alienated and therefore far more consolidated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Swapan Dasgupta, do you believe it's a done deal or do you believe it's still an open contest?
Nothing is ever a done deal. No election is ever won till it's actually won.
And what's the X factor?
There's always going to be a contest. But what I found very significant about this entire discussion was that the term anti-incumbency never featured in any of our things. So in other words, the dissatisfaction levels with the Narendra Modi government is not as significant as to warrant a particular strategy, a natural coming together. So in other words, certain things have to be contrived, certain things have to be manufactured to bring them together. I believe that at present, Mr. Modi has certainly clear head advantage over the others, not least because of the leadership issue, which there's versus who the question which is inevitably going to come up. It's also the case that there is, as Ashok points out, that the developments of this country have touched nearly everybody, and these will be actually brought together in an imaginative propaganda sort of
So you're
campaign. But finally, I would like to question Mr. Yadav's belief that the poor don't think of anything beyond the parish pump. I think that is a very patronizing way of looking at it. I think there is no empirical evidence to suggest that in all elections the poor vote only because someone gives them 500 rupees or the equivalent of that. There are other concerns which people have as citizens of this country, and they bring this to bear during elections.
Okay, I'll get Yogendra to respond, but basically you're saying there is no visible anti-incumbency. Pawan Verma, do you believe there's no visible anti-incumbency and therefore leadership will matter above all else? And unless the opposition therefore is able to provide strong and effective leadership, much like a Siddaramaiah is able to project in Karnataka, the opposition still is on the back foot. It is the BJP's election to lose. And what can change?
No, I think there is anti-incumbency. Maybe not as significantly as reflected in certain polls, but people are hurting, Rajdeep. People are hurting because incomes have shrunk. There is an issue of price rise. Welfarism has succeeded, but up to a point. The gap between the rich and the poor is growing. Unemployment is at its highest. There are several factors which today the country is facing a level of social disharmony which I don't think is liked by Hindus or Muslims or any other denomination, because Indians don't love endemic instability.
Okay.
So I think there is anti-incumbency.
So you're saying there's anti-incumbency.
But
yes,
to convert that,
go ahead.
There is anti-incumbency, but I want to put it straight in about 10 seconds. That anti-incumbency is not yet having a coherent, credible, organized, pan-Indian, grassrooted platform to take on what is a monolith, which is the BJP.
Okay,
so the only question for 2024 as of now, but it can change. It can change. Let me just finish. The only question is, politics is dynamic and nothing can change if the Hawa changes. But as of now, the question is, does the BJP get 230 seats or does it get 300 seats?
Okay, does it get 230 or 300? Because the fact is, Ashok Malik, when I look at the numbers, the BJP still is well ahead of the opposition. The Congress ended last elections at 52, the BJP was 303. To overcome that gap, you need a huge wave. You need several states for the BJP to shrink. Do you see any X factor changing? Do you believe it's an open contest at the moment? Or do you believe, as most people do, that at best the BJP can shrink to 250? Below that is very difficult.
I can't see the BJP substantially losing ground in a national election from its current position. But having said that, as everyone has said, no election is won till it's won. And this is going to be a tough election, like all elections are.
Tougher than 2019?
Yes, I think.
Given the state of the economy in particular, the fact that people are hurting.
I think it's tougher than 2019 because it's also 5 years later.
So there is an element
the
of
youngest
fatigue.
voters today are 5 years younger. They don't remember the India before 2014. Right. They take a lot of things for granted. So that is a factor.
Okay, final word therefore to you, Yogendra Yadav. You know, when you've been a psephologist, when you look at the numbers, we looked at 2004 also, in 2003, it appeared there's no way that Mr. Vajpayee could lose. He did lose. Can that happen really in 2024? Is India a very different place? And Mr. Modi is not Vajpayee. The BJP of today is not the BJP of 2003. Uttar Pradesh, largest state, same day as Karnataka, BJP scored a big win. You can't win India without UP. Do you agree pragmatism suggests this is still an election for the BJP to lose and for the opposition a difficult road ahead?
Rajdeep, 2024 is an open election. It is more open than it was after Karnataka. Of course, Karnataka does not mean that the opposition is headed for a victory. Of course it does not. And there is a real election to be fought. There is more than an anti-incumbency. There is, as Ashok himself said, fatigue. As Pawanji has pointed out, a series of issues on which there is potentially unease, beginning of frustration, but that needs to be brought together. Opposition has to now fight this election. The BJP wanted there to be a walkover before the match began. That has not happened thanks to Karnataka. Now there is a real match, but the match has to be fought. So I think we really need to think of what the opposition would do. It is for opposition to now fight this match, unless a Pulwama-like accident happens or is made to happen.
Okay, let me leave it there. I want to thank all of you for joining me. It's been great to have a TV show without any noise. Everyone making fine points without necessarily even cross-talk. And it perhaps only increases our knowledge for our viewers. That's what we want to do, news without the noise. Thank you all very much. 2024, as journalists, we would love it to be an open contest because that increases the excitement. Picture abhi baki hai. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Goodbye.
Where the software engineer meets the cool UI UX designer, meets the gifted content writer. To create the big dream, the world comes together at Sharda University. So where are you?
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Where the software engineer meets the smart market analyst, meets the talented photographer. To create the big dream, the world comes together at Sharda University. So where are you?
The heart of India's tech industry hosts a tectonic event. The latest updates in technology and innovation. The biggest names in Indian tech under one roof. From AI to 5G. From EVs to data security. Discover how technology is transforming our lives. Catch all the action at the BT Tech Today Congress in Bengaluru on June 2nd live across the Business Today multiverse.
Weather forecast now. Delhi, maximum 40 and minimum 26 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 33 and minimum 28 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 39 and minimum 26 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 33 and minimum 25 degrees. Chennai, maximum 34 and minimum 28 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 40 and minimum 27 degrees.
Why does this happen? Let me tell you the science behind it.
For more informative videos like this, keep watching India Today News Mode.
Heat waves create ideal conditions for hypothermia. Let's tell you what exactly is a heat wave. They're caused by wind flow patterns that trap hot air in the place. Instead of cycling around the world, wind stays set in areas like air inside an oven. It occurs when temperatures in an area soar above the normal temperature for at least 3 days in a row.
So heat waves are the temperature changes that occurs because of the environmental changes, and as we know, the lot of trees are getting cut and there are so many environmental damages which are occurring, and there is global warming. So as the years are going by, the heat waves are increasing. Heat waves are something which has to be taken on a geopolitical levels to be controlled, because we have to take care of nature in that. But if there are warnings of the heat wave, one can be careful.
While it is generally advised that one should not step out between 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. during heat wave conditions, what can those people do who simply have to step out?
Colors play a major role during all seasons on the earth, but maximum role is played when the sun beats the pulp out of us. To stay stylish in summer color clothes and to beat the heat, wear white or light colored clothes, preferably cotton or linen, which are airy and breezy, because it absorbs very little sun's heat and keeps our body cool. So before you step out in the sun next time, remember to wear light and airy clothes.
forecast now. Delhi, maximum 40 and minimum 26 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 33 and minimum 28 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 39 and minimum 26 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 33 and minimum 25 degrees. Chennai, maximum 34 and minimum 28 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 40 and minimum 27 degrees.
Kerala's public health. All political parties traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political black.
she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold, and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories from every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.